Hey everybody, my name is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend Mateo. This is the Coltist, and this is season 3. This is episode 4. This is the Adam Vinatieri special. And hey, we were just kind of chatting before we get started, just to jump right in, man. We were talking about Caitlin Clark and her getting snubbed and not being part of the 2024 women's Olympic team, Olympic basketball team.
Yeah,
Um, Obviously, we both kind of have things to say about this. I just wanted to say, like, the group that is suspected to be the lineup that does not include her is like 70-3 and hasn't lost. It has basically two or I want to say three gold medals without her.
yeah,
Like since 2008, they don't need her. One, and I would hate for her to take someone's spot unless it's by injury and then they lose, and then they pin it on a young Caitlin Clark, and then you lose her, right? And then she says, "I'll just go back home. I don't want to deal with this," right? Um, but yeah, today said she wants all the smoke, right? She said definitely woke a monster up when she found out that she didn't make the Olympic team, and I can imagine for her, this is probably about the first important basketball team she's ever been left off of
yeah, yeah.
and that
It's
it's been relevant for her, right? Like obviously she wasn't going to the Olympics when she's a freshman at Iowa, right?
yeah,
But this is about the first
yeah. That had
time
been crazy. Yeah,
she's been left off a basketball list for women, and I can see how there are people out there that are like, "Hey, man, it's kind of an outrage because of all the attention that she's brought to women's basketball," and I say it would be an outrage for her as a rookie in the WNBA to get a spot over all these veteran players that have been in the WNBA that have already played in the
yeah,
Olympics together and won at a high level and are continuing, probably going to continue to do that
yeah. I
without
don't
you.
think. Yeah, I don't think there. I mean, I don't think the difference between winning and losing comes down to any one player because the team as a whole is just so
No.
dominant that you're like. I mean, perhaps you could even make the point like you could take perhaps the next 15 best players and build another Olympics team, and they probably fighting for the gold medal too. I mean, it's just that sort of difference. To
Yeah.
me, it's more about, I mean, it's less about, playing wise and more about, there have been several comments about the attention off the court that a superstar like Caitlin Clark is commanding. Like, just for example, to put this sort of stuff into context, my friends, in my friend group, there are 9 guys. They follow the NBA. They don't follow the WNBA. They know just one single female player, and that's Caitlin Clark. That's all they know.
Yeah.
And just I know that's just a single example, but I imagine that happens a lot. Like they don't know nothing about the WNBA. They just know, yeah, I know that Caitlin Clark that plays in Indiana. That's the next big thing, and they
Yeah.
see her, the highlights, the Instagram reels, the sort of the plays that pop up on Twitter where she's hitting like you know long
Logo
3 pointers,
threes.
yeah,
Yeah.
commanding
Mhm.
triple teams, and they're saying, okay, this one's clearly good, and not
Yeah.
to I don't want to try to bring up perhaps controversy or anything, but they don't know who Angel Reese is. They don't know who
Right.
Sabrina Iones. They are really good players, of course.
Mhm.
They don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't know her, and they know about Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. And I will say there is a sort of panache to Caitlin Clark's game that I can see drawing like international eye, where she takes a sidestep three, right? She's not just hitting a step back in your eyeballs. She also is hitting a sidestep three in your
Yeah,
eyeballs from the logo and doing it in transition. Like she's absurd at basketball, and I can see how, like I've said, her making the team would be more divisive than her not making the team would ever be, right? And I think that her team being like 3-9, and when you go
yeah,
look at the guards that she's playing against, and they're basically having just as good a game as she is, it could tell you there's some adjustment period here. She's a little frail, and so I think she's gonna have to hit the weight room, gain 10, 15 pounds of muscle, and not get knocked down when that Kennedy Carter runs up on you, right? And instead she runs into a brick wall. I think that that's what I expect, right? I mean, I grew up outside Chicago. I was a little kid when Michael Jordan was a young man in the NBA, and he got beat up for a few years. And over the course of a few years, he hardened his body. He got into the weight room. He became a superior athlete, and it showed. While everyone else is just kind of same-ish. Might obviously take off is kind of a funny word to say for the guy jumping from the free
Yeah.
throw line, right? But like there was a period where it he was already good. He was already dominating most of the time. Just like Caitlin Clark is as a rookie in the WNBA. She's dominating half the time. She's had some nights where you're like, she had damn near triple double from the point guard spot.
Yeah.
Like she's tough. Like she's John Stockton tough, right? John Stockton mixed with a little Steph Curry. That's what I get out of it. She's a great passer, and she's a dagger with the ball in her
Yeah.
hands, especially late. So I think that if you're a Fever fan, you just got to enjoy this right now when you can see the games pretty regularly,
Yeah.
right? Like you can actually watch this girl play. You probably get reasonable tickets to go see her because the team over the course of the season, they're looking ahead and they're saying like this girl is special. We surround her with halfway decent talent and we are giving people
Yeah. And
trouble.
it's yeah.
So I can see, of course, I know the organization sees the same kind of thing where when I watch her play, I'm so excited for her in 2 or 3 years. She's she's turnover prone. She's not
Yeah.
necessarily what you want bringing the ball up the floor when they've got a bigger guard that can body
Yeah.
you. She might want to get that ball into somebody else's hand. And that's when I think about if I have to think about getting the ball out of my point guard's hand, that's probably not an Olympic point guard, right? But like a Diana Taurasi, that's an Olympic point guard. She may be 42 years old, but you
Yeah.
can give her the ball to her every time and she's getting it across half court. And that's something that you're going to have in international play. Very good ball handling because otherwise she's going to turn the ball over too much. And like I said, 2 or 3 years from now, the next Olympic team I expect her to make. Just like and like I said, I get and again I'm probably sound like a homer, right? It's like a team I root for anyway. I live here, right? But also like actually getting to watch this young girl play, like I'm telling you, the world is her oyster,
Yeah.
right? She's a friggin' rocket ship. It's unfortunate that she hadn't ascended a little further, right? Had a few more, and I think it's this wishy-washy. The life is really like this. A few more big games, she's on that list, and it's a stir. But she's kind of being eased into the role. She's not quite getting. I
Yeah.
mean, she's not quite getting all the minutes yet. But when she's out there, like I said, it's not just about scoring; it's about facilitating, it's about points per possession. She's good for it. Like I said, I think it's a role. I remember when LeBron came into the league, dude, he could score on anybody,
Yeah.
but he was not a great defender, and it took him a while to become a decent defender. And then he had that run where he was Mr. Chase Down, right? Um, it's the same thing with Michael. Michael played pretty good face-up defense and was stealing the ball from ball handlers pretty regularly, but he was also giving up buckets because he was undersized for his height. And it took him a few years to kind of get it in his head that like you want to play at he's 6'5", 6'6", 198,
Yeah.
right? You need to be like 215, 220, right? And during the 6 years that they didn't lose, his average body weight was 224. So it isn't get leaner and get skinny and get between them and shit. And no, it's go through them, right? And that's what I think will have to happen for her in her off-season prep. And the one thing and it sucks because now I'm coaching and I can totally relate. This is also the first time she's ever got to just focus on fucking basketball. And for her because she was in college, right?
Yeah.
And we talked, me and my seniors, we talked about it being the impossible task, being a great student and playing like a sport, a team sport like basketball, football, any of them. It's an impossible task. to be
Yeah.
like a great student, great athlete. Like people say, oh, people do it all the time, and it's like right, and there's like one in your zip code. Yep, every year, right? Is at least where I'm from. It's like there's one kid from the Indianapolis area that goes to a D1 program, right?
Yeah.
Um, so for her, she's been in that impossible task for the last like 7 years of their life. And now, just now, she's having to show up for work like dressed up, getting their picture taken. You can see that while she's got the gear, she don't quite have the look for that. Uh, Not all the girls are onto that. I hope she's putting these other girls on. Here, let me give you some dollars so that you can go get fresh too. So because there's gonna be cameras everywhere. Um, but I'm always looking ahead for these athletes. Like I can't wait for her off season prep. Obviously, she needs to take a break
Yeah.
because
Yeah. I saw they played 11 games in 20 days.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh
you're
yeah.
just getting used to the transition, I mean, to the physicality of an E-League, and you play 11 games in 20 days. And, another
They
interesting
were
thing, that
maximizing that dollar.
yeah, but
Yeah.
just, another thing that you can do is, I mean, do you remember like the other, girl I remember that had a lot of hype going into her rookie year do you remember Kelsey Plum's rookie season where she was hyped as the next big thing and, she's going to be amazing and all that? Now go take a look, how Kelsey Plum, who now, is a very decent WNBA player, she's one of the best.
Hmm.
Check out how she did in her rookie year. I mean, she had like I think it was like 7 points a game. She was not shooting very well. I'm
Yeah.
just checking it now. Yeah, 8.5 points per game, shooting below the .35. I mean, she was not getting it done nearly as good as Caitlin Clark has been doing it, and she was on
No.
a much better team. So I mean, if you go and look at the roster right there, I mean, this Indiana Fever team clearly does not have, the talent just there yet to compete. I know the other number one overall pick, I believe it's Celia Boston. I don't want to mispronounce
Yeah.
her name, but
Hmm.
she's a really good basketball player. But other than
Yeah.
that, I don't see much production from anyone.
Yeah, that's what I'd kind of said watching the game. There was a game it was close that they lost, and they were actually ahead until like late third quarter. And I looked down, and in a close game, like less than 10 points, they only went 70. And we talked about this during the Pacers season. Like one of the strengths the Pacers have is that they're deep as hell, and they can easily go 10, 13, 14 players deep on their
Yeah,
bench. The WNBA is not deep like that. The This team's not deep like that. They've only got a couple backups that are getting minutes, and that could just be who's prepared and healthy, whatever. They played 11 games in 20 days, whatever. The
yeah,
WNBA is trying to maximize their dollar, their value on Caitlin Clark before she inevitably gets hurt, right? Because that's one of the things that you always know with like the best of the best, especially when they stick. And I'm thinking about Derrick Rose. I'm thinking about MJ. I'm thinking about these players that are rocket ships coming into the NBA and
yeah,
WNBA too. But they come in and get hurt, and that sort of like changes the trajectory of their career. Hopefully, like I've said for her, like the impetus is on recovery, because you're playing so many games in so many days. It's hard not to get downtrodden because on the one hand you're not winning, and the other you're getting kind of drugged through it. But it's like
yeah,
the rest of the season opens up. It probably won't be that way next year. You're gonna get a much fairer schedule. Um, but she had 38 and 6 and a 2-point win. And that means you're facilitating like over the half of your team's points. Um, she shot lights out, well over 50% from the 3-point land. She hit two threes from the logo. Um, and like I said, she displays a level of scoring that her team doesn't have without. So these games that they're losing by 30, honey, they're losing by 65 if she's not
if
there.
she's not out there, yeah,
So she's in sort of a want position where there's clearly no other competition for on her level basketball player. Aaliyah Boston is good. She is not Caitlin Clark good. Are there other players in the WNBA that are so good that it would keep Caitlin Clark from being on an Olympic roster? And that's a clear yes, because there's a dozen teams with better winning records and that have like star players on them that are putting up just as good a numbers. And remember, I
Yeah.
said she's dominating half the time. So you also got to remember she came off a 2 point game, right? So she just not even a week ago, had a not so great night. And then after that, of course, it was all this stuff going on with I don't know if you saw that Gino Auriemma.
No.
He gets asked about Caitlin Clark, and she was set up to fail. She had all these expectations on her coming into the league. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I don't think that she was set up to fail. I think that the expectations are incredible on her.
Yeah, way too high.
Watch
Yeah.
watch her play though. Like stop doing this. Watch her play though. She is that. She's just young. So there's gonna be the ups and downs. She's gonna have a bad night every now and then, but then she's gonna blow up and you're gonna win a
Yeah.
game you didn't think you was gonna win. Now I get it. People have said that was a 2 point win over the worst team in the league. And I still say like a win is a win is a win.
Yeah, yeah, always.
Right. So it's not going to be a pretty season for the Indiana Fever. But who it is about to be pretty for the Pacers and Colts, we could easily just caveat right into the Pacers if that's all good with you.
Yeah.
Um, the Pacers, of course, in their off season, we're into the NBA Finals right now. Game 2 tonight. Um, I'm obviously looking forward to the future for the Pacers. You got Halliburton; he'll be participating in the Olympics. I just there's so much growth that can happen for an athlete in in an unperturbed state where like they just get to work on their game for an off season and probably take a break. I keep bringing that up, but like probably take a big break because they need a break, right? And then get back at it. And there's so much improvement that can be like I tell my athletes, it doesn't matter if you're playing sports at the next level, because both of them are going to play sports at the next level. You're gonna have so much time off a
Yeah.
day where you don't have anything going on. And you're thinking like, oh, I can never get anything done. Oh, I have a busy schedule. No, you don't. You're bad at time management, right? And now these people we're talking about professional athletes for the Colts, the Pacers, and the Fever. We're talking about people most of the time here because pretty young teams all the way around. Um, this is like the first time you ever get to just focus on your sport, not have a bunch of shit else you got to do. Right? It's why you see them out doing good the stuff for the public, probably because they're bored.
Yeah.
There's only 24 hours in a day. You got to sleep like 8. That gives you 16, and then they're going to take 10. They give you 6 hours with you don't have to work a job,
Yeah.
right? So the Pacers are like I said, they're in the middle of their off season. There's not really a lot going on here. We
Yeah,
could easily
hopefully they can re-sign, Pascal Siakam and they can get to, run it back with Mathurin back and run it back with the entire team and Tyrese gets healthy. And I don't know if he's gonna play in the Olympics. I think he will play in the Olympics for sure. Hopefully not much, so he can heal whatever he was dealing with. Just come back healthy, come back with another year of experience. I mean, you made it to the conference finals, and
in year
next year is
one.
definitely, yeah, year one. Next year, of course, I mean, you might be able to assume that, hey, it might be a little bit more difficult because this year you could make the argument that you got a bit lucky with injuries to, Giannis, to Damian Lillard, to Chris
Right.
Middleton, and then just other Eastern Conference players. But I mean, this is a team that is good enough to compete with the Celtics. I think they showed that. I mean, of course, when you look at the final result and it's, hey, you got swept 4-0.
Mm,
But if you look at each game individually, I mean, the Pacers had a chance and a really big chance to win three of those. I mean,
yeah.
game one was just heartbreaking. You had the win right there in your hands. Basically, all you had to do was inbound the ball and make a single free throw, and that's it. They couldn't do it. Then, of course, game two, they get blown out. Game three and game four, they managed to put up some decent leads. I mean, they were up
Yeah.
by I believe 15 on every game, but in the end, I think that Boston, of course, that's a team that has been in this exact spot several times before. I think they have made like the past
Right.
four Eastern Conference Finals. This is their second finals trip. I mean, they've been here. They have already done that. I
Yeah.
think in the end that sort of experience wins out
Yeah.
because especially since the only Pacers player with decent playoff experience was Siakam. Tyrese was his first NBA playoff. Nemhard, first NBA playoff. Nesmith, he hadn't played much before, so this was probably his first time getting meaningful minutes. And Miles, too. So you're like, I mean, we're gonna be back. We're gonna be better. This was
Oh
probably,
yeah.
uh, other. I mean, the only way I see that this was not the floor for this team is if injuries happen. I
Oh
mean, they
yeah.
blow everything up, and okay, there's nothing you can do. But if everyone remains healthy, I mean, the only way is up for this team, and I think that as Pacers fan, we get to be really excited about the next season.
Yeah, and from what I've heard out of Pascal Siakam, he wants to come back.
Yeah,
Right? He loved Indy, he loved the environment. They definitely Indiana's a basketball state. They love ball. Um, I think Indianapolis is a hotbed for sports. It is whether the Pacers, the Fever, the Colts are good or not. There's just so many collegiate events that go on in Indy. So yeah, the the Pacers, um, like I said, I hope they just have like a really nice quiet off season. They get a deal
yeah,
done, keep Siakam around. I kind of chimed in on a discussion on Reddit the other day. They were asking, Miles Turner plays his career out as a Pacer. Where do you rank him all time? Do you put him in the ring and like the Ring of Honor or whatever they've got? Um, and I went and looked it up. He could defensively. I don't think that there's a better defensive center that the Pacers have had.
yeah,
He's one of the better rebounders, but not the elite rebounder. That would be Jermaine O'Neal. And not the leading scorer. That would be Rick Smith. So I think that I said I think he's the best center they've had. If you want to talk about like basketball skills, things like range, he's
yeah,
better than both of them. But for most of his career, that hasn't accumulated anything. And I do find myself having to remind people that um, he's only really responsible for individual statistics. Team wins and losses, that belongs to like the
yeah. The
coaches, the
entire
team
team, yeah,
management, the organization. Um, and it being their first kind of trip to the playoffs and them making a run here, I don't even think it was something that they expected. Like, I don't think you sign Pascal Siakam and you're like, we're going to the Eastern Conference Finals now. I just think that it's something that happened. Like you said, they got
yeah,
fortunate. Giannis got injured, all that. Sure. Injuries, you still got to play basketball games.
yeah. You still
Um,
have to be the team that's in front of you. You can't
had
beat injured players, and I
had
think
a
that's also common sense.
I think when you here's what I think. I think that they overachieved making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they knew that. And so
Yeah,
we just live in a different day and age. People are more self-aware now, and it gets to a point in a basketball season where you're like, wow, we really played out our shorts. We got a lot of young players out here guarding, Jaylen Brown, right? And I think that if the focus is on player development, they're young enough, they can get better. They can watch film, they can go back and fix their mistakes. And, you know, I think that I hope that they learned that if you handle business like throughout the regular season and still wait until the end and make it
yeah,
some sort of like suspenseful game, I would much rather just be consistent and can consistently win. Um, and I think that if they can focus on that along with develop as athletes in the offseason, they have a chance to like win more games. And I think the goal for the organization would be to host more games in the playoffs. When you're like the whatever the sixth seed, whatever they were, you're just on the road to start series. And it like
Yeah.
gets the ball rolling bad. And the series against the Knicks showed me that like you definitely want to be hosting.
Yeah. You definitely want to
So
have home.
want to
Yeah.
be want to be the one or two seed. And I think obviously you hope for that organization that they recognize the spot that they're in, right? Where they overachieve, you tie the room together, and then they stick around for the summer, and everybody gets better together. And I think next year you could put out a hell of a product. You could win more basketball games. You could be a higher seed. You could host more in the
Host more playoff
playoffs.
games. Yeah. Win
Put
more
yourself in a
convincingly.
yeah, and then obviously you get to those four games that they got to against Boston with that year of experience, that off season to get better, right? And then we won more games, so now the series starts here, and you get it kicked off. You win those games. Now you're up 2-0 on the road. Now you lose a couple games, it doesn't derail the whole series. But honestly, it felt like the Pacers were going to lose those games. Does that make sense? Like they
Yeah.
would be up 15, and I'm like, oh, they're still going to lose.
Yeah. You're
And I
like,
know what?
yeah, you don't
It's just
trust
like it
them.
felt like that it's too soon for them. Like they've overachieved. Just being here is a blessing. You can make these interesting, and then of course like game two is a blowout, and of course you want to say like that's when you really knew, but it's like no, like how do you bounce back the next game? And the next game after they get blown out, they're like in it late, and you're just like, they were missing Matherin, right?
Yeah.
Guys are starting to come up.
Who's a key player? And I
Oh yeah,
think that perhaps national media was underestimating him, watching, the numbers, like saying, okay, yeah, this is a guy that put up what 14 points per game. He's not that important. You don't get to, make excuses about, hey, we didn't have Matherin. But watching him this year, I mean, if you go and watch the games, you say, hey, this sort of player is the guy that's great for the playoff because he can generate his own offense. He can knock down the mid-range jumper. He's great in half-court offense. And you're like, he would have been a great fit for a playoff. I'm 100% sure he would have had an amazing run.
yep.
And yeah, we're getting him back next
Because he's
year.
second team
He's
minutes too, and,
yeah,
and it provides you with offensive punch in your second team. I mean, obviously TJ McConnell played out his shorts,
yeah.
but think
He
about all the
was
times you
amazing. Yeah, hats off
saw
to
what's his name, McDermott, and it's just like it could have been Mather, right? Like we could have not played any of these other number of bench players and had Matherin and McConnell out there actually running a
yeah.
second unit and scoring even more frequently with another sporter out there. Um, but yeah, it being sort of their off season, not a lot going on, no transactions. We hear something, we'll talk about it. And
Yeah.
then obviously the Colts just had their mandatory minicamp or
Yeah.
OTA last week, June 4th to the 6th. Um, there's all kinds of things going on. I think it's pretty obvious where to start here with Anthony Richardson spending an entire practice throwing left-handed.
Yeah.
And
We've seen all sorts of, overreactions because of that, saying, hey, his season is done. He's never gonna be the same again. He's injury prone. I mean,
yeah.
people, I don't know if you ever had a shoulder injury, but when you're getting back from it, it hurt. I mean, it hurts a bit at first because you're getting used to, the range of motion and, exercising again. It's just common sense. It's how it works. I mean,
Mm.
you do not come back 100% from, the minute you step on the field. Hey, you're 100% again. It takes a bit of time to get the arm back to, full health. So just Steichen said it. I think Anthony Richardson too. They said, hey, it's just a rest day. It's normal. He's rehabbing it. He's coming back from it.
He
If
was
there was,
probably
and
doing more than they wanted him to do
yeah,
there. So if you watched him do the drop back and actually throw the ball left-handed and did it pretty good, you realize like that they told him you don't have to throw it, right? It's just an off day for you. You could do the footwork part of the drill, but you don't need to be throwing footballs today. Just kind
yeah,
of take a day off. And he chose to throw left-handed. So what I took out of it was that I was watching him and I'm like pretty good mechanically. left-handed. Obviously, he's doing the footwork of a right-handed athlete, so he's having to completely swivel his hips to throw. But he was making it happen. He was clearly having a good time. The ball still had a good
Yeah.
amount of velocity on it. But when he has thrown, you could tell he wants to throw the ball down the field and slinging it around. I've seen video Downs. I'd heard on the internet that he's got a good connection with Downs. And then also Pierce. I think Pittman held out a day at camp too.
Yeah,
So
there's no point at all in risking them, in having them,
no, they got a
risking
game
being
in two
injured.
months.
Yeah.
That's crazy to say it out loud. But like
Yeah.
their first preseason game is August 11th, and it's what, June 9th or June 8th?
Preseason game?
Yeah, the first preseason game is August
Ah,
11th.
yeah. Yeah, we're just 2 months. I mean, two
Yeah,
months and 2 days if you want to be, I mean, if you want to be real
it
specific.
feels like every year that it gets shorter. Um, oh, I guess we could talk about also the Colts NFLPA rep Ryan Kelly was asked about. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
looking at a screen or anything. We're just actually having a conversation. Um, Ryan Kelly was
18
asked
game
what he thought about
seasons,
an
yeah.
18 game season, and of course he said, who said anything about an 18 game season, and they said, oh, Roger Goodell said that he really liked the idea of an 18 game season, and he said it looks really good when you're not the one there playing 18 football games for a regular season. Like
Yeah.
wake me up when it's somebody does what I do every day, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've kind of thought about it because I want to be an NFL head coach, a college head coach. I don't know about 18 regular season games, man, because that means if you make a long playoff run, we're talking about like 22, 23
Yeah,
games.
that's, I mean,
And if
before
you
you know it,
compare,
they're gonna be playing like year-round NFL football, and they're gonna be dropping all over the floor.
well, what I was thinking about is the jump from college to pros is too much. So one of the things that I look at is, how many games do you play in college? Well, you get 12 plus a conference championship and then potentially a playoff. So we're talking about like 15 games at the most, right? I think 22, 23 games in total is like way too many more. That's all I got, man. But I do like the idea of 3 week preseason, and then I want an odd number of games. So you could talk me all the way down to 15. You could talk me all the way up to 17. It don't matter. I don't want them to have 18, 19 games. I think it's too
Yeah.
much. I think it waters the games around. I still think that there are watered down football games, whether because of injury, specifically to quarterback, could also be on an offensive line. They fall apart a little bit and their entire game plan does. So yeah, I definitely think, obviously I'm going to empathize with the player every time, but I don't want to see more
Yeah.
regular season football. I don't actually want to see more playoff football if you want me to be real about it. Um, but yeah, I think I want like a better Pro Bowl. That's about all I need. I definitely don't think that more games is the answer. I mean, obviously every advertiser on earth wants more football,
Yeah.
more meaningful football. But I
Yeah,
just
more
don't.
money.
But yeah, I don't think you're slipping that past the NFLPA. I think that they're looking out for themselves now, more than they ever have before. Um, but yeah, it's been a nice, pretty quiet summer, I think. Obviously, uh, what is it? Daniel Scott got
Yeah,
drafted in
Danny Scott.
2023 in the fifth round. He's a safety.
He
Um,
was he was supposedly having a great camp. He,
yeah,
of course, we all know that the safety spot is basically up for grabs right now for Colts,
it is
because they
now.
have, I mean, it's Blackman, then it's Nick Ross, then it's Rodney Thomas, who was benched last season, and it was right up for grabs. I mean, anyone had a decent chance of getting it.
Yeah.
I think that now not getting a veteran safety on the market, it's pretty much inexcusable, and you just have to go out and get
somebody.
There is, yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
although I just
Justin
don't,
Simmons is still available.
they just not believe in Nick Cross.
I think they do, but you need to have, I mean, the problem for me last season too was, I mean, let's say they decide to take a gamble on Nick Cross and him playing and taking a step up. What if he doesn't, what if he doesn't manage to play, to improve his game? And what if he's not great? What if he doesn't, fit the scheme? He has troubles adjusting. Then what do you do? I mean, what is your backup plan right there? I mean,
Right.
right now, like say, or even say, Nick Cross suffers medium term injury, he misses, I don't know, 4 to 5 games. Who plays then? I mean, there's basically no one else. And
Right.
you're at that spot where you could easily, solve that. You could get, I mean, perhaps, of course, Justin Simmons would be amazing because that's a Pro Bowl caliber player right there, a great veteran to have. But I mean, I don't know, at least bring in
And
some
they've got
bodies.
23 million in cap
Yeah, I
space.
mean,
They can make it happen.
it's not like you don't have the money to. I mean, you do have the money to make it happen.
Well, maybe as we get closer to meaningful football, the Colts will make a move. Like I said, it's not that they don't have the money or they don't have the need to do something. We were kind of joking to shut everybody down until the season, right? After Daniel Scott went down, it was like, all right, everybody. And then of course, like the viral video of Anthony Richardson throw the ball left-handed, have everybody like, oh God. No,
Yeah,
I remember I hurt my shoulder really bad when I was in the Marine Corps and had to have surgery and have had struggled with right shoulder pain most of my life. Like sometimes you could just never get it right, right? And kind of no matter what work I do, it still hurts, right? And I'm not a quarterback in the NFL. So
yeah, hmm,
um yeah, it's certainly gonna be a great year. I can feel it. Right. Obviously, if you're a Fever fan, it doesn't feel like it. There's going to be a lot of turnover on that Fever team. I can tell you that right now. Just on the numbers. And if they don't, if they choose to sign the hometown girls, and we think we got the bodies. They just need better basketball players. That's what's going to have to be. Because, like I said, I think Caitlin Clark is the future, right?
yeah,
Like I said, and so that was really the only question mark I have is, are we going to have to lose for a couple more years before the Fever get it right? Where I don't feel that way with the Pacers. I feel like the Pacers are young, they have depth, they can win 45 games a year for the next 3 years, easy.
yeah,
Um, and then obviously you obviously hope you can get back to where you are, where you just were, the Eastern Conference Finals, and not have enough gas in the end. Because I think that's really what happened. I think the Pacers got to points in those games where we know we can beat them, but we just don't have the gas to beat them. And it's not a matter of running out of time. It's like clock didn't run out fast enough. And that's on youth. And that can be fixed, and you can have better depth, and
yeah,
you could learn to play with a lead, and turn it into situational basketball, from when you decide. And understand that sports are evolving. You know, um, LeBron James and JJ Redick have a podcast, and recently they were talking about fouling up three, right?
yeah,
And you know what I thought LeBron James made a great point. Why aren't we fouling up six? And then you think about eight, not, obviously you could take it out as far as you want, but it's like once you build a lead, why would you want to give them good looks? Why not just foul them?
yeah. I think that the minute they start fouling, perhaps at six, the NBA is gonna change that, no doubt, because that would basically kill the game. Like imagine if every single game you watch and your team is up or down six and they start fouling and it's a free throw contest. Yeah, I'm
It's like
turning
used
that
to
shit
be.
off.
It's the way it used to be in a tight contest, though. I think it's more meaningful than like one shot ends the game when it's like, no, there were seven free throws shot in the last 2 minutes, right? One team made all theirs, and the other team shot 50%, and they lost by 2, right? Like it's kind of goes back to I like seeing fundamentals decide outcomes, right? And so I just thought it was an interesting conversation where they were talking about fouling up 3, and it was like it made total sense. You foul when you're up 3, absolutely makes sense,
Yeah.
especially less than a minute and a half left in the game. And then LeBron says, "Well, what if they're up 6?" And JJ's like, "Damn it, man," because it was like the end of their episode, right? So here we are at the end of our episode, kind of talking about it. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's kind of a good place to end. Obviously, it's not actually the doldrums of summer yet, right? There
Yeah,
was
not
actually
yet. We're
actually some
getting
things
there.
going on, but we are on our way. I imagine the next time we get together, we will be saying like, "No, now see, this is the doldrums of summer, baby." Because I have a feeling it's nothing but Caitlin Clark for the next couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
I got a feeling. So hey, have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great week. We'll get together in a couple weeks here, brother.
Yeah, and we'll see.